All right, Abuja, you're still tuned to 91.3 FM, Radio Maria, the voice of truth. And you are still on to the Volunteers Hour on the program. Volunteers Hour is a program dedicated to us promoting volunteerism in Nigeria, and we believe that volunteerism, well entrenched in our society, will help solve problems faster than the government. Today we'll be having a very wonderful conversation, and I'm not alone in the studio. I am in the studio with some outstanding young people who understand what service is all about. And with me is my co-anchor, the professor of volunteerism.
Wonderful.
Mr. Amos, introduce yourself.
I feel flattered. Good morning, Abuja. Nice to be with you this beautiful morning on Radio Maria and Volunteers Hour. I remain my humble self, Amos Ubedojo Andrew. Thank you for joining us.
All right, Abuja. We're not just alone in the studio. I know the professor is here, but we still have some outstanding young women in the studio with us, and I would like them to introduce themselves. Beginning with the lady in the red.
Okay, my name is Hannatu Amadu Manu. I'm the program officer from Proactive Gender Initiative. We're happy to be here.
Excellent. And again, we still have another woman in the studio. I would like her to introduce herself.
I'm Stephanie Oji. I'm a legal practitioner in Abuja.
All these lawyers who can be looking for trouble, let them come and defend us.
Yeah, beautiful people we have in the studio this morning.
Yeah. All right, Abuja, you are still tuned to the Volunteers Hour on Radio Maria 91.3 FM, Abuja. Radio Maria is the voice of truth. Doing what's within my power to meet the need within my community will make a world of difference for you, for your community, and the world. This is by Adediran Adegoke. He's a yearly network coordinator at the U.S. Embassy, Abuja. Welcome back to Volunteers Hour. And before we went on the quick short break, we just introduced two special ladies in the studio. While that is going on, somebody very important came on, but we're not going to introduce him yet. Let's hear from the ladies. First of all, let's go to Hannatu. Hannatu is the lady in red. You have always, you are the program officer in your organization, right? And usually, for many people in the civic space, their journey into the non-profit began with volunteering. Has that been part of your story?
Yes, it has. It has. I started my work with the NGO by volunteering for the Nigerian Women Trust Fund. Mm-hmm. It was a program on gender-based violence, on how to end gender-based violence. And it was a very interesting program because we were trained and then we had to go out there and then spread this message to others, train others and let them know that this is bad and this is good, and what should be done when we are being abused. So it was the start for me, and it was a very beautiful one. I really enjoyed it.
Interesting. I know that has been it's always a story of many people in the civic space, people having to learn the ropes through volunteering. Now, over to you. What's your journey?
I've always been a volunteer. It has been my story. I've been a volunteer. I've volunteered in different aspects, in the church, in school. That has been my story. Church and school.
Amos, I know you want to say something when she mentioned church.
Yeah, because it takes a level of awareness for you to know that what you do in church is actually a volunteer service. Yeah. So I'll give you kudos for that. So,
thank you.
So can you tell us how you started? What did you do in the church?
Okay, the one that really comes to mind now, there was a time, pamphlets, they were all torn. So I took them home and then I fixed them with sellotapes. Then I brought them back to my youth church, yes.
Interesting. You know, this example she gave might seem ordinary, but somebody who understands the depth of volunteerism will understand that what she just did, basically, she volunteered her time to repair what would have been thrown away. You've helped the Christian community where you belong to save some money, and that's part of some of the research we're working on. You know, we always want to and put a cost to the energy of volunteers. But that's a different story anyway. Because you are a young person and because you are a lawyer, have you at any point used your legal service or lean on your legal service to provide support for other persons as a way of volunteering or serving your community or meeting the needs of your community?
Yes, severally. Yes, there was this. I've handled the pro bono cases, especially before the legal practitioners remuneration rule, the new one that came into 2022. Before then, we could just do pro bono. We could just do pro bono cases for indigent persons. Yes, I've handled a couple of cases for free.
Interesting. We would like to know what are the stories behind that much later.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Amos. We still have somebody very, very big in the studio, and we wouldn't want to waste his time. And to be nice to introduce the big fish in the studio.
Yes, we'll just go straight to bring him on board, so we could have a very robust conversation and to tap into his wealth of experience. So, no doubt, we have somebody with so much experience.
All right, Abuja, you're sitting to 91.3 FM Radio Maria, the voice of truth. And with us in the studio is somebody whose life has been extraordinary, somebody who has served, when you mention the media, there are people whose service can never be wished away. Journalism is part of is part of the life of the person we're about to introduce. I would want him to introduce himself.
I feel very, very uncomfortable when people try to whether it's merited or not is a different thing, but praise makes me a bit uncomfortable.
Well, you can be
I'm just an ordinary. I know, it's absolutely not. So I know, just an ordinary person doing ordinary things. And that's why. Well, first of all, my name is Achike Chude. I'm a public affairs analyst on many, platforms, media platforms. But also discuss international issues as a foreign affairs expert, kind of. I'm also a writer. I'm a novelist. I have 2 novels. The third one is on the way, collection of short stories. I also write a newspaper, make contributions to major newspapers also in the country. And I'm a civil society activist. And the National Secretary of the Nigerian Union of Journalists. So these are, you see.
When I talk about the media journalism, I didn't want to shoot too much because I know that
you are being modest.
It's best to hear it from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, so meanwhile, the topic, I think it's a very critical one. I think it's very important. In the sense that, again, when she talked about the service that she had rendered in church, and Hannah also said, talked a bit about what they are doing in the field of gender, related issues. These are critical issues. But one thing that comes to mind as we discuss it is the public good. Everything that you do, every, act of volunteerism must be for the public good. Either it affects individuals, private individuals, maybe on a personal level, or it affects the community as a whole. But whether you do it for the individual or not, ultimately at the end of the day, they say it is little drops of water that make up the ocean. So the little contributions you make in the lives of people end up, becoming that contribution you make for the welfare, of the society in general, for the good of society in general. And the one word comes to my mind, one by word, from scriptures, is be your neighbor's keeper. And so all of us, and regardless of the neighbor here is not defined. It's not a Muslim, it's not a Christian, it's not an animist. It is the person that is near you at every particular point in time that there's an issue. You have an obligation, because there is one connection, and that is the humanity, in both of you. So you have a duty obligated to help the very next person, regardless of where that person is coming from. And I think that is a wonderful thing. So you can see, for instance, with regards to the media, the job and the duty of the media is so important for the development of society. So whether you do it in an official capacity or you do it in an individual capacity, you are helping to build up the society. And that's why the Constitution recognizes that by putting the media, by ensuring that the Constitution makes provision for the, adequate protection of the media. Because if you want a freedom of the press, exactly. So if you want a country, that thrives, that is successful, you must look at the media. If the media is thriving and the media is successful, then the way you look at that, use it as a barometer to gauge what is happening in the society. So we might get to maybe in the course of, so I don't want to, take, you are the anchors. You have to do your job, but maybe in the course of the discussion, other things can come up. I mean, in terms of my own personal experience, with volunteerism and all that. Okay.
But let me just quickly ask you this, sir. What does volunteerism mean to you?
Yeah, if you look at the dictionary definition of volunteer is somebody who opts to do something because he wants to do it. So there's a willingness to want to do something, to be part of something. And the volunteerism, can also be sacrificial. It is sacrificial because you are giving up something. Either you are giving up your time to achieve a certain end where you do not necessarily earn a reward. And I think that is where the issue is, because when she was talking about her experience, before maybe she got into, I don't know her present status now, that's her too, before she got into, perhaps full into NGO work for which she is being remunerated. At the initial stage, she was not. Perhaps they were doing it also to test, her resiliency, to test her capacity for compassion and empathy and the rest. And then maybe having seen it, they decided that, well, no, this time around, we recognize your effort, want to pay. And it's also for her, the lawyer. People have all manners of problems, and so there are times, it's like a doctor, for instance, who has an issue. I mean, a patient who has an issue, doesn't have the money, goes to a doctor. And then, in the course of the doctor just decides, look, this person, the problem will exacerbate if I don't help. So he makes a sacrifice. He volunteers to help her out. You people also, you could be in the studio now, somebody walks in, he has a problem. He needs to highlight an issue that he's facing, maybe a social issue. And you decide, this is what talking about, this is what taking up. In a way, you have volunteered to also be of help, to her. And then, so it's the same thing for you take up somebody's case pro bono, you are volunteering, you are giving something for something. You want to help, somebody in a particular difficult situation, or you want to help a community, and you decide that you're not going to get rewarded for that. That is volunteerism, from my own understanding of what it is. So it's something you do. You expend energy, you expend your time, you expend your money to be able to achieve a public good. And you might not necessarily get something back in return. Yeah.
I think you just pretty much captured the true essence of volunteerism. And I really like that. But for someone like you who it's in the media space, and you understand the nature of volunteerism, do you think that the media is doing enough in projecting the volunteer initiatives of Nigerians? For example, in advanced countries, there are structured initiatives that compulsorily promote volunteerism. And one way for those structured initiatives to get relevance is that public image being created around it. Do you think the media here is promoting aspect of volunteerism enough?
I think the media is doing their bit. That's what you're doing in the studio right now. You are trying to encourage people, for those who do not even know what it's all about, you are trying to tell them that there is a niche, there is something to tap into, that you all have a duty, you all have responsibilities. Yes, we know that the situation is different look at the economic situation in the country. But in spite of that, because you see, when you find yourself in a situation where you're not able to make ends meet, to meet up with expectations in terms of maybe at the economic or financial level, you find out that you become less generous. It imposes a burden on you, and that's the reality.
Yeah.
And I tell people today, when people are complaining about Nigerians, all of the crises that you're seeing, I tell them, I say, look, but go way back, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, Nigerians were a different set of people. Nigerians were nice people. Nigerians,
which is true.
Nigerians were neighborly. You can criticize Nigerians all you want, but that is the truth. But as things get more and more difficult, people become more and more selfish. Because they need to protect their homestead. It's like in a community where a man, for instance, maybe you are the person that everybody knows in the community, you're always helping out, and then things become a bit more difficult. You begin to withdraw from the help you render to the community.
You focus on the family first.
You come back to your, clan, and then as things get more and more difficult, you leave the clan, you come back inwards to look at your own primary, family unit and all that. So that is what happens, essentially. And so when you talk about, abroad, for instance, the example you gave, that is very true. But don't also forget that the structure and the polity and the economic realities in those places are much more difficult, are much more different. That's why much easier. That's why you have a lot of help coming from some of those countries to African countries and the rest, because they have much more, and they are able, from the more they have, they're able to give, But that is not to say that, the story of is it the widow?
The widow's mite.
Yeah, the widow's mite. It's a story that comes to mind, because when Jesus asked the apostles, somebody was putting in 20,000 pounds, somebody 50,000 pounds, and then somebody comes in and puts a penny, and he asked them a fundamental question: who do you think has given more? They said that, but master, can't you see that this man gave 50,000 pounds? It's more. Then the next person is 20,000. This man gave nothing. No, he said no. She was one that gave everything. She was one that gave the most, because from the little that she had, she put in everything. So it's not always about you having the billions. It's about even the little that you have. What do you do with it? And that is what is even more appreciated, because you gave from the much that you have. A person that gives from the little that he has given more than the person who put in billions. And that's the reality, looking at the person's state of mind. So I think these are some of the issues that, to buttress, it's a point I've used a lot of times. When this hurricane, was it Hurricane Katrina that happened in the United States? When it happened?
In Louisiana.
No, I think it was Katrina, the major one.
Yes, that happened in Louisiana.
Okay, Louisiana. Yeah. Okay, fine. When it happened, people were busy extolling the virtues of Americans. They were helping themselves, good neighbors, all of that, helping, each other from, all of them had the same kind of tragedy. But before you know it, water began to dry up. There was no water to drink. There was no food to eat and all that. And in the next 3 days, the same people that were so nice to themselves changed, and they began to break into shops because they needed to survive. Because the first law of nature is survival. So where am I going? You don't create a situation where you put people in a very difficult situation. You're in a difficult position to take, in terms of what they are going to do. Try to create a favorable environment for people, and people will thrive, and that is it. So, but regardless of that, wherever we find ourselves, no matter how difficult the situation is, there is always, when we look around, we will always see that we're better than a lot of people, no matter the complaint. And that's why that song, if you remember that song, Count Your Blessings. There's a reason. You're busy moaning and complaining, things are tough and so on. Then all of a sudden, maybe something tells you, but let me even take a look at my life. And then you begin to count one by one. And all of a sudden, you have reasons to be grateful to God. For where you are, that you're actually better than most people. It's at that point that you realize that you also need to do more for people.
Wow. Awesome. This is like
at the point I just thought maybe he shouldn't stop.
It's like when they say define something and you give all the explanation characteristics of that particular thing. So that is what he has actually done. And this is so simplified in such a way that even anyone who is just joining us in the conversation at any point in time will be able to pick up. So this is very good job you've done, sir. Thank you for this elaborate explanation of what volunteerism is and how it has fared in terms of media visibility thus far. Like you said, it's something that is a challenge you are facing at the moment, because you can't go on so many programs and you find them discussing volunteerism. This is the first of its kind in the capital city of Nigeria. And I don't know about any other place in the country, but this is the only program that talks about volunteerism as it is right now. And that shows how conscious we are about volunteerism and how we want it to be entrenched in our society, in Nigeria in particular. And that is why as young people and organizations that work in the field of volunteerism, we make it a point of duty to make sure we propagate the goals of volunteerism. Like the song we played earlier says, good job, that is Good Job by Alicia Keys, says you are the light in the dark. So we look at it that we all need to be the light in the dark, else everywhere will become dark.
That's the truth.
Yeah. The only way to know that you have led is to check how many people you have served. This is by Oyewole Joledo. He's the founder, Self-Lead Global. Welcome back to the Volunteers Hour on Radio Maria. The conversation around volunteerism can never end.
It's inexhaustible.
Yes, because I will read a part. I will read something. The first paragraph in the background of the national policy of inclusive volunteerism for Nigeria clearly states that volunteerism has long existed in Nigeria, both formal and informal. In addition, the background went on to identify that volunteerism is an integral part of our culture, which extends to every aspect of our lives. This statement is very correct, as many Nigerians in the past and present have extolled that life of service and volunteerism. But this is the interesting part. According to President Buhari, in the forward to the volunteers policy, he stated that the federal government has been consistently making efforts to galvanize Nigerians to reawaken their culture of volunteerism as a complement to strengthen government development strategies for the nation. Now, I'll break it down. The then president was the one who signed the National Volunteers Policies into law. And that made Nigeria one of the first country, or one of the few countries in the world with a national document to direct volunteerism. And in that statement, he in his forward to in the policy, he mentioned that it's an attempt to reawaken. And my cash point there is the reawakening. It means that it was once part of our culture. Those days, people, a woman would give birth, and the family members would travel all the way from their village to be with the family of this woman who gave birth, and they would serve the family for a couple of months and all that, you know. We have in those days, you see young people in the community organize themselves to build shelters in the village market that was blown away by the wind. You know, these are acts of service, but how much of that do we see now? And that's why the then president used the word. It's an attempt to reawaken the culture. Mr. Amos, I know you have so much question to shoot at, but I thought I should put this at the background.
Yes.
Before you throw your question, I want to hear from our boss in the studio. How does that connect with you when the then president wrote that by instituting a national policy on volunteerism is an attempt to awaken Nigerians to the culture of service again?
We cannot argue, against an obvious truth. And just like you also talked about young people in the village square trying to do one or two things for the community, this is part of who we are. as Africans. In fact, members of the human family world over, globally, that has also been part of volunteerism. You can argue has been part of the history of humanity. It's as simple as that, because people get together for a reason, for the common good. And so in the process of building a society, there are always challenges to that society. And that's why you have laws. That's why people come together to choose leadership, so that the society can move in a particular direction. And people who fall outside, the confines of the law, societal laws or societal mores, are adequately punished, so that every other person can be in compliance for the good of all. That's why the word common, good is used. Now, there's no culture you talk about in this country, from the various over 280 different languages that you have, or different peoples that you have in this country, where you do not have aspects of volunteerism, where youths are given certain assignments, where the women are given certain assignments, or they know, it's an obligation for them to act in a particular way for the common good. So it has always been there. So if now that it has been codified, I think it's a good thing to emphasize once more where we're coming from, our virtues as a people, that we must not forget, regardless of how things are. But I in a way, because I'm also a political person, I'm also a civil society person.
We know we'll be coming to that. Wow.
Exactly, because to whom much is given, much is expected. It's always easy for our leaders to make statements about the need for us to be patriotic, which is a good thing. They also tell us, one of the things they tell us is that this country is bigger than every one of us, which is a big thing, and which is the truth. Because, you have a situation where, people, the normal balance is to say, soldier go, soldier come, barrack will always remain. When we come and go, Nigeria hopefully will always be there. After all, our parents came, they made this country, they have departed, we are here. One day, it's inevitable, we have to go. And we hope that the country will continue to thrive. So sometimes it is good for our political leaders to sermonize, but they should always learn to walk the talk. It's good to talk about patriotism, but we also expect the highest standard of patriotism from them.
Come from them.
Because they are the leaders, they are the ones that lead, and then we follow.
Yes.
You understand? So they need to begin to set that example. Anybody, that's why I say words are cheap. Anybody can say anything, but it's in the doing that you know how expensive those words are or how cheap they are.
I know your mind. You wanted to choose some questions.
No, a lot ran through my mind while he was speaking, because from what the president said, we are awakening voluntarism. So if we are to just take a look, which means something happened along the line. So
why did he die?
What happened? Is it that government killed voluntarism, or something unexplainable happened to voluntarism culture?
In a way, the question you just asked, in a way, I tried to answer it earlier. When I told you that Nigerians have not always been like this.
Exactly.
Nigerians have shown a lot of virtues in the past. Good people, here and there, rejoicing with one another whenever they succeed, whenever their neighbors succeed, and the rest. We've always seen the best of Nigerians. But I also talk about the passage of time and what it brings with it. The very serious, harsh economic conditions in this country have made people a little bit more selfish than they used to be. They close rank, and they shut their doors to the good that they used to do before. And then people who normally you would expect, who have always been kind before, we're beginning to see a lot more rashness and brashness among Nigerians, and so all of these things have to do. And I think there was something the former Inspector General of Police said, or the top police officer said. He said we needed, years back, that we needed to do something about the economy. That the more an economy gets worse, the more problem it causes, even for the institutions of state, especially the security agencies and so on, because people look for shortcuts, and so you don't want to create that kind of environment for this kind of things, negativities to thrive. But on a good day, Nigerians, and you still see a lot of goodness from Nigerians. We've had people, who recovered money from left, containing thousands of dollars or Dutch marks, over maybe 50,000 or so, at the airport, and they take it, and then they look for the owner. They go and they give the money to the authorities to look for the owner. We've seen people who left, somebody who left about 500,000 in a Keke Marwa, I think in Kano. There was one also in Jos, and the drivers or the riders of those Keke Marwas returned the monies, went to the authorities to report. So you still have, even in the midst of so much disillusionment in the country, there are still great people. And that is what gives us hope in humanity. The fact that out of 10, you might see 2 that are still good, that gives you a sense that all is not lost. But in a situation of maybe you have 10 and everybody, all of them are bad, you lose hope in humanity. So in a way, there's no doubt that we have lost our sense of values. We were told stories in those days, and it is true, the people that have testified, that in those days, if you're a civil servant, and you suddenly take a car home to your father, and he rejoices and all that, and then the next thing he asks you, but you told me how much you're earning. How did you get this? How did you get this car? And if you're not able to convince him that you bought this car from your sweat, he will tell you that when you go back to Lagos, you don't come back to his house with that car again. Those were days of values. You understand, when these things mattered, but it's been eroded over time. Today, you are having issues of, even we've heard of parents or mothers mothers of association of mothers of 419ers and Yahoo and the rest. I mean, it's strange. These are things, these have not been part of our culture, but these things are happening today. And so we must look for a way to go back to try to retrieve our values. When you are looking at this country now, you say, look, how can the country has fallen so much? Look at the people who are running the country. Look at the people who are led, who should also provide examples. The ordinary citizens too. One way or the other, some of us have also contributed to what is happening in this country. But because it is people that have led the country to where it is today, it is the same people that can lead the country back up to where the country is supposed to be. And we have the capacity to take this country back to where it should be. It is with us. That's why people use the word political will. Do we have the political will to make a change?
I like that. I know you've been itching to say something. Let's hear from you.
Yes, I have a question. You've gone on and on about volunteerism. So I want to hear your comments when somebody feels that another person's volunteerism is affecting their source of livelihood. Well, I don't know if you get me.
This is a big one. In a way, because when you are talking about volunteerism, you're talking about good works. Abi? So if you say that your good work is affecting somebody else's source of livelihood,
person says.
If that person says that your good work is affecting that person's source of livelihood, then the person must be involved in bad work. And
I literally wanted to say that.
Exactly. So, and if the person is doing that which is wrong, then do you have a problem with your conscience? You don't. You shouldn't have a problem with your conscience, because you know that you are doing the right thing. And except that good that you're doing becomes a problem in terms of it endangering your life, then it becomes a completely different thing. Then you also need to look for a way to take measures to also protect yourself. Some of us are also election observers. So we observe elections, and I've seen one or two people in this studio that's also doing the same thing. I won't mention his name. I won't mention the name. But one of the things they tell us during training is that your life is more important than what you came there to do. You have gone there to do good, but as you strive to do good, be sure that you take measures to protect yourself, because they are bad actors. You are the good actor. You want to do the right thing for the good of society. But there are some people who are making profit from ensuring that the society continues to degenerate. Exactly. So in that case, there is a clash. Ultimately, I believe that good will triumph over bad. Ultimately, I know that. But at that moment, you need to take, action to first protect yourself. So, they do the good that you have been doing. Continue to do it. That's just the only thing, regardless of what the person feels.
Are you part of those fighting the good? All right. So
Very interesting. Currently, Proactive Gender Initiative partnership with FCDO and Situation Room, we are currently conducting a research with the Nigerian National Volunteer Services. I'm sure a lot of Nigerians don't even know that organization actually exists. And we are trying to bridge the gap in volunteerism in Nigeria. Please, is there any advice you can give towards that? How we can actually work better? Maybe something that we can do better, all of us, as the government, the NGO. You've spoken a lot about what they have done so far and what has gone wrong so far. But are there steps forward that we can take?
Well, I don't know, but you made a point. You made a point that, again, not many Nigerians know that there is a policy paper on volunteering, on volunteerism in Nigeria. When you were reading it, I think it was a surprise to a lot of people. It would be a surprise to a lot of people. They've never heard of it. So there's a problem. There's a disconnect somewhere. And maybe somewhere also the media stands indicted, because it is the media that should disseminate information, out there, and then also you make people aware of some of these things. But perhaps the government itself has not done. They've not partnered properly with the media, because the media cannot tell your story if you don't approach the media to say this is our story.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think somewhere along the line, but that's why I also like this program that you're highlighting this. With regards to the advice, I think there's still so much that can be done. And I suspect that the government is not, doing what it should do the way it should do it. Even if it is doing what it should do, is it doing it the way it should do it? For instance, you have practical, examples. The Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs under the Buhari administration, even under this present dispensation, how much engagement did they have with civil society organizations? Some of the things that were going out to people, we were told monies and the items that went out to people, a lot of people tell they never got it. Did they engage the right groups, the right organizations? You understand, who are used to, who on a normal day understand the terrain, situations of the people. Yes, and the situation of the people, and are also trained in volunteerism and are also inclined towards volunteerism. So you can see that for them, it's about sacrifice. So how much of these people, these groups, these organizations, the credible ones, of course, because you have those organizations that were also set up by all manners of people for, to exploit the situation. But they are very credible organizations out there.
All right. You've been listening to the voice of a superhero. This program is so short that we couldn't delve into an aspect of his life. I'm really interested about his role in the civil society. I'm aware of your involvement in the Situation Room, and I'm aware that you've written books, and he's a man with many caps plus plenty feathers. But as we round up, I just want to give you 30 seconds to say something, because now this program is also recorded, and we intend to share knowledge with more people in a larger platform. So we want to hear from you.
So this program will also be on our YouTube channel, which is Pro Gender TV on YouTube. Yes, the name of the program of the podcast is Democracy Games, and we also have courses that we take. Courses that include organizing for change, elections and electoral process in Nigeria, elections, observations, and all of those things. But we really like you to also take the course on organizing for change. We need to organize as a country. So to go to our website, please tune into www.progender.org.
All right. Final word, Amos. We're behind time already.
Yes, I wish the show is not ending right now, but I want to play so that we could still have you back, because you have a question already from me.
Yes. So I was going to come to that. We are going to beg you, sir. Yes. We'll have to have a conversation. Exactly. Like a full conversation.
Are you begging with a cow or goat?
No,
you don't. I will volunteer. I will volunteer to come.
Great. That's fantastic. So, thank you everyone for joining us in this segment of the program. We look forward to having you next week again, and keep volunteering. Put a smile on the face of someone this beautiful day. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.